Hello everyone. This video is your lesson on solving equations using multiplication or division. Your learning target is to be able to write and solve equations using multiplication or division, and your success criteria that will help you know when you got there state that I can apply the multiplication and division properties of equality to produce equivalent equations. I can solve equations using multiplication or division, and I can apply equations involving multiplication or division to solve real-life problems. Similar to lesson 1, we have multiplication property of equality, which states multiplying each side of an equation by the same number produces an equivalent equation. So in this situation, if we have x over 7 equals 4, and we multiply the left side by 7, we would multiply the right side by 7 as well. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and on the right side, 4 times 7 is 28, so we have x equals 28. The division property of equality states dividing each side of an equation by the same number produces an equivalent equation. So if you have 4x equals 20, 4x means 4 times x, so if we divide by 4 on both sides, on the left side, 4 divided by 4 is 1, or just 1x, and on the right side, 20 divided by 4 is 5. So for example 1, we have x over 3 equals negative 6. So we will see that we have division, and the opposite of division is multiplication. So we'll multiply both sides by 3. On the left side, 3 divided by 3 is 1, so 1x or just x. And on the right side, negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. Here we have negative 4 times y, so we'll divide by negative 4. Divide by negative 4 on both sides. On the right side, negative 4 divided by negative 4 cancels out. It's equal to 1. So we have 1y or y. And on the left side, we have 18 divided by 4, negative 4. The top number always goes in the house for long division. And we bring the decimal up. 4 doesn't go into 1, but it goes into 18 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 goes into 25 times, and 5 times 4 is 20. So you have no remainder. So 4.5. And we said a positive divided by a negative is a negative. (6d) equals 24. 6d means 6 times d. So the opposite would be to divide by 6. 6 over 6 is 1, so 1d. And on the right side, 24 divided by 6 is 4. Now it's your turn. Please solve the equation. When you're ready, push play, and I'll talk you through these steps. For question 1, we have x divided by 5. The opposite of divide by 5 is multiply by 5. Make sure to multiply both sides by 5. On the left side, 5 divided by 5 is 1, so you're left with 1x. On the right side, negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. For number 2, negative a equals negative 24. In this situation, we just want to solve for a. So we'll divide by negative 1. Make sure to divide both sides by negative 1. Negative a divided by negative 1 is a, because a negative divided by a negative equals a positive. On the right side, 24 divided by 1 is 24, and a negative divided by negative is a positive. And for number 3, we have negative 1.5n. So let's divide by negative 1.5 and divide by negative 1.5. On the right side, they cancel each other out because negative 1.5 divided by negative 1.5 is 1, so we're left with n. On the left side, 3 divided by 1.5 is 2, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. This slide is just a review of what reciprocal means. Reciprocal is where you take your fraction and you flip it upside down. I'm going to show you a strategy that you could use in the future, multiplying by a reciprocal. And we know that dividing a fraction is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal from a previous lesson. So please just keep that in mind now as we move forward. So for example 2, I want to show you 2 different ways that you could do this. The first way, negative 4/5 x equals negative 8, is to draw your line and to understand that negative 4/5 x means negative 4/5 times x. So we'll divide by negative 4/5. And on the right side, we'll also divide by negative 4/5. On the left side, the negative 4/5 divided by negative 4/5 cancels because it's equal to 1. On the right side, we now have negative 8 divided by negative 4/5. So we're dividing fractions. Negative 8 is negative 8 over 1 divided by negative 4/5. We know when we're dividing fractions, we keep the first fraction and then we multiply by the reciprocal, which is 5 over negative 4. Here we can cross simplify. 2 goes into 4, or actually 4 goes into 4 once, so negative 1, and 4 goes into negative 8 twice, so negative 2. So negative 2 times 5 is negative 10, and 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 10 divided by 1 is 10. So x equals 10. And that strategy is perfectly fine if that's the strategy that you like. However, there is another strategy. When we have our equation, negative 4/5 x equals negative 8, rather than dividing by negative 4/5, you could multiply by the reciprocal. The reason that you can do this is because the 5 and the 5 cancel, and the negative 4 and the negative 4 cancel, because it's just 1, so that would leave you with x. So by multiplying by the reciprocal here, you're doing the same exact thing that we did in the first strategy. Now remember to multiply the other side by the reciprocal, 5 over negative 4. And you'll notice we're in the same place. Negative 8 over 1 divided by negative 4/5, which is 8 over 1 times 5 over 4. So we kind of are just skipping a step. And we end up cross-simplifying. We get negative 2, negative 1, and we get negative 10 over negative 1, or x equals 10. So here we see we have 3 halves, z. So to get rid of the 3 halves, let's multiply by the reciprocal, which is 2/3. 3 over 3 is 1. 2 over 2 is 1. So you're just left with z. On the other side, we'll take 2/3 times negative 6 over 1, and we'll cross simplify. 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 6 twice. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 over 1 means z is just equal to negative 4. Here we'll multiply by 3 on both sides. 3 divided by 3 cancels. We're left with t equals negative 12. In this example, we'll multiply by the reciprocal, which is negative 5 over 2. The 5 and the 5 cancel, the 2 and the 2 cancel, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So we're left with p. We also need to multiply the other side to keep our equation balanced. So let's multiply this side by negative 5 over 2. Keep in mind negative 6 is just negative 6 over 1. So we'll multiply a negative times a negative is a positive, and 6 times 5 is 30. 1 times 2 is 2, and this can simplify, and we end up with 15 over 1. So p equals 15. Now it's your turn. Please give it a try on questions 4, 5, and 6. Multiply by the reciprocal in order to find the solution for your variable. Then when you're ready, push play. So for number 4, we're going to multiply by 5/8, and that's a negative. 5 over 5 and 8 over 8 cancel. Negative times the negative is a positive, so we get b by itself. And now we'll multiply by negative 5/8 on the right side. 5 is really 5 over 1. And we end up with negative 25/8, or we could say that b is equal to negative 3 and an eighth. For number 2, we'll multiply by 8/3. 3 over 3 and 8 over 8 cancel out because they're just equal to 1. And then on the other side, we'll multiply by 8/3. 9 is 9 over 1. And we can cross simplify. 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 9 3 times. Keep in mind that's negative. So negative 3 times 8 is negative 24, and 1 times 1 is 1. So h equals negative 24. And for 6, we'll multiply by 3/2. Multiplying by the reciprocal allows us to cancel because 3 over 3 is 1, and 2 over 2 is 1, so that leaves us with x. On the other side, we'll multiply by 3/2. Negative 14 is negative 14 over 1. And we can cross simplify. 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 14 7 times. So now we have 3 times negative 7 is negative 21, and 1 over 1 is 1. So we get x equals negative 21. For example 3, please watch as I go through this one. The temperature at midnight is shown at the left, 56 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature decreases 4.5 degrees Fahrenheit each hour. When will the temperature be at 32 degrees Fahrenheit? So the first thing that we need to do is we need to find the change in temperature. The change in temperature starts us at 56 degrees and takes us down to 32 degrees. So this change in temperature will be a 24 degree change. We know that the temperature will decrease 4.5 degrees per hour. So let's write our equation then. A temperature of 24 degrees, and let's actually think more carefully. The temperature is going to be dropping, so this would be negative 24 degrees, and that's going to equal 4.5, because that's how much the temperature is going to decrease each hour. That also would be negative since it says decreases. And that's going to also be then multiplied times t, which is our time. So from here now, we can solve for t. We have negative 4.5 times t, so let's divide by negative 4.5 and do that on both sides. On the right side, That's just 1. So 1 times t is t. And on the left side, we have 24 divided by 4.5. A negative divided by a negative is going to give us a positive. We can't have a decimal outside, so let's get rid of that by moving it over. And so our new division problem is 240 divided by 45. 45 does not go into 2. It does not go into 24, but it does go into 240. So let's skip count and see how many times. 45 and 45 is 90. Another 45 is 135. Another 45 is 180. And another 45 is 225. So now let's count. We skip counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. All right, so 5 is our solution. 5 goes right here. And 5 times 45 we said was 225. So when we take away, we bring down a 0. And from here we see how many times does 45 go into 150. 45 goes into 150 3 times. 3 times 45 is 135. Subtract and bring down, and you can see a pattern here now. So we get 5.3 repeating, or you could say 5 1/3. All right, let's try this one together. I would like you to copy this one down into your notes. The elevation of the surface of a lake is 315 feet, and during a drought, the water level of the lake changes -3 1/5 feet per week. Find how long it takes for the surface of the lake to reach an elevation of 299 feet and justify your answer. That means justify it by showing your work. So to start, we have to take the 315 and we're going to take away 299 because we're going to see how much the water drops. 15 minus 9 is 6. 10 minus 9 is 1, so it drops 16 feet. Dropping 16 feet is important for us to recognize. That means -16. So now we'll write our equation, which is -3 1/5 W, because -3 1/5 feet per week equals -16. So we want to solve for W, so we will divide by -3 1/5, and we'll divide by -3 1/5. On the left side, -3 1/5 divided by -3 1/5 is 1, so we just get W. And now what we have is -16 over 1 divided by -3 1/5. Let's rewrite that. First of all, converting -3 1/5 into an improper fraction. So that's going to be -16/5. And then we are going to keep the first fraction, and then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is going to be 5 over -16. And there you can see that you can cross simplify. -16 over -16 is just 1, so you end up with 5. So W equals 5. It says find how long it takes, 5 weeks. For number 16, dig deeper. It says the patio shown has an area of 116 square feet. What is the value of H? Justify your answer. So here's what we know. We know the area is 116 square feet. To find the area of this shape, we are going to add base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 times the height. And the height is what we currently do not know. So we know this little piece is 10 feet. 4.5 and 4.5 is 9, plus 10 more is 19. 19 plus 10 is 29, so we'll do 29 over 2. We just took care of that portion of our equation, times the height. So we have 116 equals 29 over 2h. And now we need to solve for h. So we're going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 2 over 29. 29's cancel, 2's cancel. That's why we're able to do that. We're just left with h. And then on the other side, we also need to multiply by 2 over 29. And so now we have to do 2 times 116. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 1 is 2, and 1 more is 3. 2 times 1 is 2, so we have 232 over 29. And then at this point in time, I don't know how many times 29 goes into 232, but 29 is really close to 30, so I'm just going to skip count to get a bit of an estimate. I'm going to go 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240. So I'm at 240, but I did skip count 8 times, and I rounded up to 30. So if I take away 8, I'm at 232. So that tells me right there, 29 times 8 is going to give me exactly 232. 8 times 2 is 16, and 7 more is 23. So there's my 232. H is 8.